All right, guys, I'll just go ahead and open it up to questions.
I should know this, but how many players actually left with injuries that did not return that will? It was Chris and Rashid.
And then Cam ended up with an ankle injury that he didn't return.
Cam did not return.
Yeah, I think that was everybody. Yeah.
So Cam is an ankle, not a shin?
Well, it was told me ankle injury today, so I don't know exactly what that is, but
and you said
I think they're still doing some evaluation on some of these guys.
quad for Rashid last night. That's still
Correct. Yeah.
And so those are the nature of injuries that could be weak to be.
Yeah. Look, we'll have to see, but yeah, I mean Shahid's quad injury was a pretty good little quad injury. It happened on the first play of the game. And he, tried to gut through it and certainly wasn't quite as effective as generally he would be. And then Cam's injury happened really at the end of the game.
You've worked with Dan Campbell. What do you think of him as a coach and the job he's done?
I think he's done a really good job. Yeah, I mean, it didn't start out great for him, but through about halfway through the second season, they started to turn things around, and I think he's done a really good job. I think their team is, tough, physical, competitive. They do a good job on offense in the run game. They do a good job with play action passing game in the run game. They play, really physical and aggressive defensively. So I think he's done a good job with that team. Yeah, absolutely.
What stood out about him when y'all were on the staff?
Well, look, I was at A&M with Dan, so I've known Dan for, a long time as, teammates and things of that nature. Just a tough, physical, mindset. I mean, that's really, what he was as a player, and I think that's what he is as a coach.
When you watched the tape again, did you reveal anything that you didn't see?
Missed opportunities was the biggest thing. We had 7 drives that, we got into scoring position, and we weren't able to capitalize for, a multitude of different reasons. 3 penalties hurt us, 2 holding calls and an offensive pass interference. And then we had 2 turnovers down there, and then we had 1 missed opportunity, to Shahid right there on the goal line in the second drive of the game, that we had an opportunity potentially to, score touchdowns. So, look, that's certainly, been an issue for us. We haven't been able to get that corrected. That's going to continue to be a focus of ours. Because as I look at that game, I think, if we're able to capitalize on a few of those opportunities, I think the game plays out differently.
Did you see anything, DA, on the run defense, or was it just a case of
Look, I don't think the run defense was as good as it needed to be. I thought it was decent early on. There's a couple runs that as we got into the third quarter, really the thing that was disappointing to me defensively was really the last 2 drives. We basically had given up, 7 points on defense, and then we gave up 2 points or 10 points in the last 2 drives. So our inability to finish the game defensively was frustrating to me.
Dennis, I know you were asked something similar last night, but was it especially concerning, disturbing that they had this type of uneven performance on both sides of the ball after that reset week, after the South Scouting?
Yeah, look, I mean, it was frustrating that we weren't able to capitalize on the opportunities that we had. I thought we did, a lot of really good things, offensively, being able to move the ball. I think in between the 20s, we moved the ball, pretty well. It was really once we got across into the 25, 20-yard line where, we made some mistakes that, either put us behind the chains or we turned the ball over down there. So, yeah, that was frustrating. I knew that this was a team that was going to try to run the ball. I knew this was a team that was able to run the ball effectively. And we allowed the game to be one of those games where they were able to run it, I think 38 times, I think was the total times. And so, when you allow a team that wants to run the ball and they're good at running the ball, and you give them 40 opportunities, it begins to wear on you. So, I think I would have liked for us to be able to capitalize on. We turned the ball over down there on the 5-yard line. I'd like for us to think that we could, stop them down there, change the field position, give our offense another chance.
I know we get accused of, in the media, fan base, everything's a crisis or a carnival. We've heard that a lot around here. But why is it not that, after the way the Minnesota game and the Atlanta finished, that like critically urgent,
Well, I think
unacceptable tone right now?
I think it is critically urgent. I think the message to the team was that that's unacceptable. We got to be better. Just because we stand up here and we're able to talk in a tone and in a way that doesn't necessarily say that we understand the sense of urgency, and I can certainly appreciate the question, and I can appreciate the fans' urgency, and I can assure you that the people inside the building feel the same sense of urgency.
Dennis, what more can you expect out of Derek Carr at this point, and what considerations have you maybe considered at the quarterback position?
Well, look, I think there's some opportunities that we missed, and yet I think there was a lot of plays that we made in the passing game. So I think all of us need to play better. I think we got to coach better, and I think we got to play better. So.
But 11 games in with Carr, the way things have gone kind of up and down, I mean, what conversations are you having to get the ship righted at this point?
There's been a lot of conversations. We'll kind of keep what the conversations are inside our building, but obviously we all know that we've got to do better.
I know after the game yesterday, I think Alvin said, we don't have an identity. Is that concerning, or is that kind of compartmentalized into a passionate player after a tough loss?
Look, I think obviously that's probably a better question for Alvin to answer instead of me trying to speak for him. I think I wouldn't say that we don't have an identity. I thought we came out in the game. I thought we ran the ball effectively. I thought we were able to get the ball down the field effectively. We made some critical mistakes. But if we don't make critical mistakes in those situations, we're probably having a different discussion up here.
What do you think the team's identity is then, if you feel differently than he does?
Well, I think we have explosive players on offense. I think we've proved that we can be explosive on offense. Defensively, I think we do a really good job of taking the football away. There's some areas in both phases and all three phases that we have to improve on. But I think we have a fast, explosive offense, and I think we have an opportunistic defense.
With the run defense, in general, I know we talked about the quarterback so much, but is that an area that all season long, I mean, there have been spurts, I guess, like maybe the Indianapolis game order, but is that an area where you feel like it hasn't been what you were hoping it would be with some of the changes you made?
Look, I mean, does it need to be better? Yes. I'd be the first one to stand up here and tell you that it needs to be better, and it really hadn't been quite where we need it to be in the last couple of years. So it's going to continue to be an area that we'll address and try to work on and try to be better at. It's particularly when you play teams like that want to run the football. And I think that's why this is such a team game. I think we have to be able to take advantage of our opportunities. And, if we're able to do that and now all of a sudden you're playing with a lead and they're not able to try to run it as many times as they do. But yet, look, I told the defense today I was disappointed with the fact that we had done some good things in the game. In the last two drives, we weren't able to finish the game. We started fast in both halves. We did not finish well in either half.
Now, what continues to be the issue with stopping mobile quarterbacks? I mean, talk about the rushing yards, but Desmond Ridder was another one who was able to get out and make plays.
Yeah, I think it's still there's some rush lane integrity things that we need to be better at. There's some second level, third level of the defense where, we've got to be able to recognize and come get a guy down on the ground. So, it's a concern of ours, and we're working hard to try to address it.
Ritter only completed 13 passes, obviously, and had the 2 interceptions, but 0 sacks. Was that something you saw opportunities where you wish you'd gotten to him yesterday?
I think there was really maybe 1 or 2 opportunities, to get to the quarterback that we didn't take advantage of. He didn't hold on to the ball very, very, very much. I think there was probably, 2 opportunities, one on a scramble there at the end of the first half that he got out. But I thought we had a chance to potentially get him on the ground. There was a play earlier in the game where he kind of got out to our defensive right, where I felt like we had an opportunity to potentially get him on the ground.
How did Jason Pierre-Paul look in his first snaps that you were
Look, for being here for 3 days and getting, I think it was 17 plays that he was out there. I thought there were some, you can tell that the guy's got, instincts. I think there's some fundamental things that, we've got to work on. But I thought, for a first time out, there were some things that I was encouraged by.
When it comes to complementary football, is that just a matter of all 3 units doing their job, or can you coach the merger of those 3 into complementary?
Yeah, look, I think it's a combination of those things. I mean, I think all 3. Usually, complementary football comes down to all 3 units performing their jobs and performing their jobs well. And look, I understand that I'm the one that choreographs the whole thing. So, it's ultimately my responsibility.
Did you have a chance at all to see how like Ike Gotham played and some of the new secondary situation?
Yeah. Look, I thought our corners played pretty well. There's probably 3 plays in the game, I think, that I would have said I wish we'd have played that a little bit better. But I thought overall, those guys did a good job.
And how do you address, I know this is kind of a tough question this early in the week, but you have some manpower issues now at receiver. How do you address that?
Well, we'll have to sort through it. I thought Lynn Bowden did a nice job in some of the opportunities that he had. Obviously, I think Chris Olave stepped up big in this game. It hurt not having him, to be able to finish out the game. But we've got some other guys on the team, and other guys are going to have to step up and play if certain guys are unavailable.
Do you think you might have to look outside the building, or?
I don't think so. That really hadn't been something that we've kind of discussed right now. I think, the answers that we're looking for are going to be inside the building.
Is Jimmy Graham possibly part of that equation?
Could be, yeah.
Is he viewed as more of a pass catcher
I think,
first?
Yeah, probably. I mean, look, could he potentially help us in certain situations, maybe down there in the red area? I think that's something we got to explore.
You talked about Dan Campbell, just kind of lighthearted here. Has he always been kind of that type of guy, like to bite your kneecaps off even when y'all were teammates, or did that evolve into that?
No, I think that's kind of always been his mentality. Yeah. He's a tough, gritty dude, He was an overachiever as a player, and I think he's always kind of had that mindset.
Do you feel like, other than the issue at the goal line, that A.T. Perry handled a bigger role?
Yeah, look, there were some things that I saw that he did well, and there's a couple of plays he did in the run game from a blocking standpoint that I thought did a really nice job. There's some route things that he's got to clean up. I think anytime you go from being kind of a not active to now you're active and you're kind of a part-time player, and then all of a sudden you're thrust into a role where you're playing 50 snaps, that changes things a little bit. So there's certainly some things that I think he can work to improve on and utilize this tape to to evaluate himself, and there's some things that we can work to improve. I like the prospect. You know, I like some of the things that I see him doing. All right, guys, thanks.